Hi everyone, this is Mike Vaquera. I'm the Bureau Chief at NewsNation here in Washington, D.C., and I'm reporting to you today from the White House North Lawn. And there is major news indeed today. President Joe Biden, the White House announcing this morning, has tested positive for COVID. It is said to be a very mild case, in the words of his press secretary. His personal physician has also put out a statement, actually a copy of the letter that he has written, the personal physician, to the President of the United States, citing symptoms: runny nose, fatigue, and dry cough. The physician also noting that the president is on the antiviral drug that is now under an emergency use authorization from the FDA called Paxlovid. Many people have probably heard of that. The president is eligible to take that because it is an emergency use authorization. He is over the age of 65 and he has exhibited symptoms. And if you have exhibited symptoms for fewer than 5 days, then you are eligible to take it. It is said to be a very effective drug in clinical trials. It reduced the risk of hospitalization or death by 89%. The president himself is tweeting today. He was scheduled to go to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, not far from his boyhood home of Scranton, Pennsylvania. He was going to be talking today about crime and guns in this country, something that is on top of mind here at the White House and, of course, across the country. With a spike in crime. He's unable to make that trip. I think that's probably obvious at this point. But the president tweeting out that he's doing great, quote unquote. He has spoken with Pennsylvania Senator Casey, who was due to be with him in Wilkes-Barre today for this event, the local congressman, Representative Cartwright, and the mayor of Wilkes-Barre as well. And he says he sends his regrets and they'll probably reschedule that trip. Of course, the president was traveling yesterday on Air Force One, and a number of people were with him. He traveled to Massachusetts to talk about his climate change agenda. There were a number of local senators. Senator Markey, for example, was on the trip. No word yet on anyone there testing positive, although we can assume that the White House is performing contact tracing on that as well. A number of people close to the president, his wife, of course, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, spoken to him, says that the president reports that he's doing fine, as we just heard directly from the president himself. So a lot going on here at the White House. The president seems to be in good spirits, according to the White House accounts. There will be a briefing, let's see, in about 1 hour and 14 minutes to be exact, here at the White House, from the press secretary and the Dr. Ajit Jha, the brand new COVID coordinator for the president and the administration. So a lot going on. We could probably talk a little bit about the president's health history. This is his first bout with COVID that we know of course. Many people around him have tested positive. Including the Vice President Harris, who also spoke to the press on a trip that she is making today, and says that she spoke with the president personally and also reports that he's doing fine. But the president, according to his routine health summary that is made public by the White House physician, latest one was last November, the president is in good health. He suffers from need to clear his throat when speaking in public. I think anybody who's watched the president over the course of his presidency and before that as a senator or vice president knows that that's not unusual. Reports that his gait was stiff. He walks with a stiff gait, an orthopedic issue, and he has persistent atrial fibrillation, AFib, but that is something that is deemed not threatening or alarming at this point at all, as his heart recovers in each time. So the president here at the White House has tested positive for COVID. He's on Paxlovid, the new drug, the antiviral drug, approved by the FDA for emergency use authorization back in December. All accounts is that he's doing fine. Of course, his predecessor, President Trump, had a harrowing experience with COVID, was suddenly flown, choppered from the South Lawn here at the White House to neighboring Bethesda, Maryland, and Walter Reed Medical Center, where he was seen by a team of physicians. That account, the president also receiving an experimental antiviral, I believe it was remdesivir. Paxlovid next generation, or at least the subsequent treatment, is said to be much more effective than what was available to President Trump at that time. So we are on standby, watching to see if the president has any kind of turn in his health, but by all accounts, including the president's, his physicians, he's doing fine, with very mild symptoms at this point. We have some questions from some of you already. Susie on Facebook asked, has he had COVID before? He has not, as far as we know. The Vice President has, the Secretary of Commerce has, Susan Rice, one of his top advisors here, has had COVID. Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, has had COVID. Of course, Jen Psaki, the newly departed press secretary, had COVID more than once. And so it's interesting to point out that anybody who's around the president on any given day, and that includes the so-called press pool that travels with the president and covers his events, they're designated to cover his events for the rest of the press, everyone has to have an antigen test or a rapid test before entering the White House grounds on any given day or before being in proximity to the president. So nonetheless, the president has contracted COVID and is positive. A question from online: when would the VP be tapped to step in? The president would have to be incapacitated. It's only happened a couple of times in American history, really, when the president has been unable to perform his duties. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of the Reagan assassination in 1981, when there was some chaos and confusion here at the White House, including the Secretary of State appearing at this White House podium, Alexander Haig, and declaring that he was in charge. That was in fact not the case. And so Vice President George H.W. Bush, for a very brief period of time, was. VP Harris, that designation or that procedure has not been kicked in, and from everything we understand officially from the White House, and keep in mind that these are from the president and other official sources for public consumption, the president is doing fine and we're nowhere near that step. So just to review, the president here at the White House has been traveling. Of course, he traveled recently internationally to the Middle East, his trip to Israel, to the Palestinian West Bank, and to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where he had his controversial fist bump with the Crown Prince there, Mohammed bin Salman. He had returned over the weekend. Monday and Tuesday were down days for the president. We didn't see much of him. I don't think we saw him at all on Monday and Tuesday. And then yesterday, his trip to Massachusetts to talk about his climate change agenda. Today, again, scheduled to go to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and talk about crime and guns, an issue very much on the forefront of Americans in big cities and small cities, as well as politically here in Washington, become a hot issue as we head into November. So the president has been gearing up for those elections, trying to address some of the issues that are top of mind of many voters. Let's see, what else do we have here? A question: can you talk a little bit what happened with President Trump again, and how this compares so far? Okay, so President Trump, it's important to keep in mind, and this is one other vital piece of information that I haven't said so far. President Biden has been boosted twice. He had his initial 2 shots, and he has had 2 boosters, which of course lessens the chance that this will become a severe episode, a severe illness as he battles COVID here at the White House. President Trump became ill before any of that was available. And it was a matter of some news, big news, when he was given what was then sort of an experimental antiviral treatment. Again, I believe it was remdesivir to treat his illness. Many of the accounts, the first-hand accounts, including from his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, in real time, as the president was in Walter Reed Hospital, again in Bethesda, Maryland, not far from here, Walter Reed Army Hospital, a naval facility out there, that he had been there, was there for 4 days. President Trump, of course, insistent that he appear on camera, both from a room adjacent to his hospital bed, even when he was said to be very, very ill at that point, and of course when he returned from Walter Reed, and in the interim driving up and down Wisconsin Avenue, which is the major artery that passes Walter Reed, and waving to his supporters who had gathered there for quite some days on end. And then choppering back on Marine One from Walter Reed here to the South Lawn, and a major production put on by the White House and the White House internal video operation. The president walking off Marine One, up the Truman steps onto the Truman balcony, and dramatically taking off his mask and then turning to a camera and delivering a message. So we're very far from that now. But again, that was in the relative beginning stages of treatments and the pandemic. We've come very far, as nobody needs to be reminded, in terms of the severity of this illness. Hospitalizations remain dramatically down from where they were even earlier this year with the Omicron variant. Now the BA.5 variant having taken hold, an increase in illnesses, an increase in positive tests. We don't know exactly how many people are positive because many people are vaccinated, many people have natural immunity because they've contracted it before, and many people don't even bother to get tested. So not really a comparison in terms of the severity of the illness of these 2 presidents, President Trump and President Biden. And in terms of the treatment, again, what we know from what the White House tells us is that the president is doing fine and is taking Paxlovid, the drug that is said to be very effective. Again, 89% effective in reducing the risk of hospitalization or death for those who have contracted COVID. The president is 79 years old. He, as I mentioned before, you know, routine sort of minor things that he deals with, throat clearing when making public speeches. Everybody has seen that before. A stiffer gait, according to his physician, again in the annual regular report that's made public. This was back in November. Persistent AFib, atrial fibrillation, said not to be an issue as well. He's got gastric reflux. So I mean, these are things that many Americans, particularly older Americans, reflux I should say, older Americans deal with and are probably familiar to most of you, but it does not appear to be a serious issue here for President Biden. We are standing by, of course, and monitoring the president's situation. In 1 hour and 6 minutes now, we do expect to hear from the president's press secretary and Dr. Ajit Jha, who's now here at the White House as the president's advisor on COVID. Okay, let's wrap it up then. You can hear more about this. My colleague Kelly Meyer is going to be standing right here at 5 o'clock Eastern and 4 o'clock Central on rush hour. And throughout the evening, please stay tuned or here on NewsNationNow.com where we will provide updates as needed. But the situation right now, again, wrapping up, President Biden, by all accounts, official accounts, doing fine here at the White House, canceling his trip to Pennsylvania today. Mild symptoms including runny nose, fatigue, and dry cough, taking the antiviral drug under emergency use authorization of Paxlovid. Okay, going to wrap it up. Thanks, guys.